we were talking about error handling basically in JavaScript. See, what is a what is a error basically? See, error is any abnormal event that disrupts or that breaks the script, right? We never want the code to fail abruptly. If something wrong has happened, you know we all want to catch it in the code. So error is a very normal thing. I mean, it it can come because of any programmer mistake. It can come because of any some wrong input. There could be any reason behind the error, in the script, but it is possible to catch error also. For example, we have try catch block to catch all kinds of error, right? This try block, we write those statements which can throw the error, which can raise the error, which can throw the error, which can give the error, right? And in catch block we catch the error, right? So that if error comes, we will catch it and the code will proceed further. All we want is the code to proceed properly, code to finish properly. We don't want the abnormal completion, we don't want the script to die, so for that error handling is there. Now, just to give you an example, see, nowadays we have strict use written on top of every script, so that no programmer is allowed no programmer is allowed to skip the skip the data type. Earlier, see, JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. I told you that one point it can have a string, another point it can have a number, another point it can have a boolean. I told you that if I declare a variable called message, it can have a string. If I print the type of message, it will give me string, right?
Yeah.
So type of message, right? We have type of string. Yeah, so then comes a same variable can have a number also, and type of will give me number, same thing, right? Same variable can have a boolean data also, and now it will give boolean. So this is dynamically typed language, and JavaScript is also a sloppy language, meaning earlier we used to simply use the variable like this, without let, without const, without var, right? Now that is not possible. Now we have to use it. See, inside it is still working. On this editor it is still working because of its sloppy nature. But if I use try catch block, and if I use a variable called ABC, this is a block. Inside the block it is mandatory. So if I just print the message associated with the error, it will give reference error. It says ABC, so message is ABC is not defined, and if you print the name of the error, it will give you reference error, right? So here I didn't declare this, but I handled this. If I declare this, the catch block will not work and the script will proceed fine. Script will keep running, and that is our ultimate objective, that the script should never stop abruptly. Let the script finish properly. So this is how you print the message associated with the error. This is how you print the name associated with the error. So that is an example of error handling. But if you tell, if you say that, we have a wrong syntax. If I have written wrong JavaScript, then what will, try catch block do? So I'm just giving you an example that even if there is one closing bracket which was not put properly, so then what will catch block or anything else will do, right? This is a wrong syntax. So always remember, syntax is different, error handling is different. If my syntactical error is there, then uncaught syntax error, right? There are 4 opening brackets, 3 closing bracket, so this will never work, right? ERR is called as error object. This could be any name. Even if I use PQR, that is fine. It is not mandatory ERR, anything is fine. But since this is a wrong syntax, now it is fine, the syntax is correct now. So never misunderstand between a wrong syntax and the error handling. Error handling is different. Syntax of a language has to be followed. Then comes, script always works synchronously. What is synchronous? One after the another. See, nowadays we do asynchronous programming, meaning we write code now and it can run anytime later, right? That is what we do now. But script runs statement after statement. So there are some scheduler functions. Popular scheduler function is set timeout. We will talk about that also. But scheduler function, what it does, it calls a function after a given time period, right? Now why I put this thing here. See, set scheduler will call one function. So here if I say set scheduler, just print something, right? And it prints after 2 seconds, 2000, because it is millisecond, right? So 5 seconds, so it can run here even if I give any function. So this statement is written as part of function, and this function runs right after, this function runs after 10 seconds, right? I want this function to run after 10 seconds, or what I can say, if I put an error here, right? I didn't declare anything, right? So my point was, if I use try catch here, right? Now this try catch will work instantaneously, okay? But since here I have try set timeout, here let's have a function declaration, so a callback function, and inside this function declaration I didn't declare a variable, so a block will also come. I didn't declare this variable, and I want this function declaration to work after 10 seconds, right? I want this to work after 10 seconds. Or let's say 1 second. See, nothing is here. It is telling me that uncaught reference error, ABC is not defined, right?
You just put a let in front, let ABC equal something.
Yeah, so now it is fine. If I write console log, this is rest of code, now rest of code will print. But if I didn't declare this properly, here it gives me uncaught reference error, right?
Yeah.
This, right. So the point is, this is asynchronous thing which is happening. If I don't, if I would, for this kind of a code where I can make mistake inside scheduler function, which will run after a given time period, it is being said that I should put this within the scheduler function. So this try should have been used here, and this catch should have been mentioned here, right? So this try ends here, catch ends here, function ends here, and this, so this set, and here I have this catch, this try, right? So now it's fine. Now also problem comes, it will simply print reference error. Why it is doing like this? Because one will have to remember then in these kinds of scheduler function, try catch should be used inside, because as I said, the in JavaScript error is handled synchronously, meaning line by line we read things. So if something is wrong here, we should put try catch within. Earlier what I was doing, I was using try catch outside. Because of
Okay.
that, this error was not getting handled, because set timeout will call a function after a given time period. So that is one thing, another thing that you have to remember, that it has to be a syntactically correct statement. And inside the scheduler function, set timeout is one example, clear interval, you know we have set timeout, clear interval, clear timeout, right? Set interval function is also there, right? Set interval function will keep calling a function after every given time period. I want this function to run endlessly. Here with set timeout, this function run only one time, right? So I will give you the example of
Got
this.
off again.
You can see my screen, right?
Hello?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, your voice got cut off in the last statement you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying that there are certain scheduler functions which we'll talk about, right? Set timeout, set interval, this keeps calling a particular function endlessly forever, whereas set
Okay.
interval just calls a function only one time. Between set timeout and set
Okay.
interval, this is the difference which we will talk about. Now in scripts, one has to remember, three kinds of properties. So I can have the error name, I can have the error message, and when you will write script as part of Visual Studio, here you can have a error stack also. Stack gives you, in which line the error has come, line information, where actually error has come, right? So this editor will give the information, right? So I have rest of code, ABC is not defined, reference error, and since it is an editor, so it gives us this line number 121, line number, and third column basically where this error has come.
Out of the three, 121,
So
third column.
this is restricted to this very editor. Once I will teach you applications on Visual Studio, we will get these line numbers only.
Okay.
Okay, so we got to know that, you know, that that error are handled synchronously, and you know error are handled synchronously, and in a wrong syntax class error handling will not work. And you know so we have just taken few examples to see how error handling works. See, now in JavaScript, there is this thing, JSON.parse, to parse or interpret any object, to check any object. So now I have one object, right? I have an object name as John, and I have a age property as 32. So, and this has to be within quotes. JSON always gets the data in quotes. When you will see JSON, you will see JSON like this. This is JSON is what? JavaScript object notation, a basic object which we learned about in the previous session. Right? Now I want to check whether this object is right or not. Syntactically, interpretation wise, how it is, you know, validated. So I will use the API JSON.parse and I will pass the object like this. It will check that. And to print, we can say user dot the name property will give us John, and user dot age property will give us 32. But this is a correct JSON, right? If there is an incorrect JSON, then what we will do? Meaning, here something wrong happens. This age didn't come in double quotes. I get this expected double quote property in JSON at position number 17. I get this message, but I want to handle it while doing this.
Yeah.
What I could have done, I could have put this within try catch, and using catch as an error object, I could have printed the name and the message associated with the error. Right? So now it says the name is syntax, so here syntax error and message is expected double quote. After that, when since I declared this within block, so I could have used where it will be used outside. Now I am trying to print a property for this user object which is wrong itself, so this will not work, right? So I could have checked if user, first of all, parsing is wrong, then what we will do, right? Otherwise I could have checked if user doesn't have a name property, or if user does have a name property, then only print it, then only say give me the user dot name, right? But here user doesn't have a name property, else I
Yeah.
could have printed a message that here user doesn't have a name property, right? But the problem is error has come on this line, so it comes to catch, and these code will never work because error handling is done, and that, so error occurs, rest of the statement will be skipped. That is how error handling works, right? So these statements will never work. But if it is a correct JSON, now it is a correct JSON, so it will simply print the name. Forget about catch block, forget about this else block, it simply prints the name, right? So, but if let's say there is no age property, and if I would have done the same thing with the age property, if user has a age property, prints the age, otherwise say here user does not have the age property. So I printed that message, user doesn't have the age property. But once I know that this is a syntactically correct object, right? Now sometimes what happens, it's a very common thing in JavaScript, that I know that this is there, that object is correct, name property is there, but age property is not there. So sometimes you will get the requirement that okay, you are printing this statement, but you should throw the error by yourself. So you can throw a error here. You could have said that like this, here I have thrown the error by myself. Error thrown by us only, right? So now
Is
here,
this a custom message?
yeah, this is a custom message. Okay, so I could have said throw error with this message, error thrown by us only, and here we printed the name is error and message is error thrown by us only. So this is how a programmer can throw messages by himself or herself, by themselves. A programmer also has the power to stop the application, or programmer also has the power to throw the error by themselves, right? They have the power to do that. I don't want to proceed further, so I intentionally thrown the error. This is also very much okay, whether it is error, or I could have said syntax error also. Now this is a syntax error. I could have said this is a reference error. Now this is a reference error, where we are throwing the error by ourselves, right? So that is also possible, that we can throw the error when something happens. Okay, so if age property is there, it's fine, otherwise we can also throw the error. See now,
Okay.
now there is something called as error propagation. I would like to take the error, propagate the error to a place, because I want that to be handled somewhere else. For example, now I created a function called read data. Same thing I am going to do inside the function, that there is a user object and there is a JSON, right? Let's say the JSON is absolutely right. Name property is John, age property is 32. This is a correct object. Okay, now here comes try catch block. Inside try catch, I just called one function ABC which does not exist, right? So here I will have the error message. Just give me 1 second. Right. So now this message does not, this method does not exist. This method does not exist, so it will give me error. And the first we can print the error. Let's say I just print the name or the message or the stack trace of the error. So the name of the error, I have to call this method. So once I call this method, it just gives me reference error. This method does not exist and the name of the error is reference error. Now I would like to propagate this error. So
Sorry, one question. I keep forgetting the difference between object and method. Are they the same thing? Method doesn't exist.
no,
The
this is a
ABC.
function. This is a method. This
Okay.
ABC is also a method because method will always be followed by round bracket or parenthesis,
Okay. Okay.
right? So here inside catch block I checked that if the name associated with the error is the reference error, in that case, see, I can print that. There is no problem in printing the name associated with the error. But I can propagate. Here I said I am throwing this error. And while I was calling this function, here I can catch the error. Here I can catch the error.
Okay.
So you see here, you know, a, a reference error will come, reference error, right? So a bracket started closed and here error object. Now you see the reference error is printed here. I thrown the error and I caught the error here. So this is called as error propagation. I want to catch the exception where it is more meaningful for the end user, for the programmer, that yes, the error would have come here. So this is used for error propagation also. This is used for error propagation, means taking the error to that level, to that method where you think should be handled. It is your call, programmer's call basically,
Okay.
right? So these are few things. See, then comes finally block. Finally block, try catch finally. Finally is used for cleanup activity. If you have started an object, you can close the object. If you have started a database connection, you can close the connection before we go out of error handling. So because you will see that finally will always work no matter what. This is always and every time finally will work, right? You see, always will it will work. If I write finally
Then what
here
is the
also,
point? What is the point of having finally then?
no, see here I started a object user. So before I go out, I could have nullified user so that it doesn't consume the memory. So if error comes, it is always recommended to do the cleanup activity before you leave the code. So
Okay.
object nullification, connection close, files closed, stream closed. These are common things that we do as part of finally block because this will always work no matter what. Finally will always work whether exception come, it doesn't come, it is handled or it is not handled. It will always work just for the cleanup activity so that we don't consume the memory like that.
So if the memory gets consumed, does it throw an error eventually
Yeah,
at some point
performance
of
of your
time? Like,
application will become slow, your application speed will be low, and you know
okay.
you will occupy more space on the server. Ultimately, environment team will come to know that some application is just consuming, just putting the objects, and those objects are never going away,
Okay.
right? So like this is basically error handling. Now let's take one example. See, we have a concept called Fibonacci series. In Fibonacci series, we add previous two numbers, right? So now what I'm going to do inside try catch block, I'm going to have a result where I will give a Fibonacci function and pass a number to that. And there is an associated catch block with the error object which is optional. If error occurs, I mentioned result as 0. So that is how it happens, that if error comes, make result to 0. That is what everyone says. But if it works perfectly fine, then finally block I would like to see the performance. So I would like to see the current time minus the you know the start time. So I will just complete this. So first I will take the number from the end user. So via prompt I will get this, that please enter a number of your choice, right? And by default, let's say I give 30 or 35. Let's say I give 30, a default number, and I introduce two variable, result, which I am using below, and I am going to use diff also, which will tell me the date time differences, right? And then I will define this function called fib, which will take this variable number, right? Or here I am passing num na. It could be name, could be anything, it could be n also, but this number, whatever user gives, that number I will give to this function, right? And before I start this try catch block, using date.now, you can start this date.now will give current date and time. I will tell you about date API also. It will give you the current timestamp. Timestamp is the number of milliseconds, since epoch time. Epoch is the, see, every application in IT industry today consider 1st of January 1970 as the base date. So 1st of January 1970 is called as epoch date, and this will give me number of milliseconds from 1st of January 1970. So here first I calculated current time, and then I run this, and then I subtract, just to see how much time this function will take, which I am going to write now. So whatever user, first, I should always check this number that you have passed me. If it is less than 0, that means you have not given me a correct number. Or if I remove the spaces using math.truncate, truncating the number, if it does not comes out back to that number, that means you have not given me a correct number, you have given me some string. So if you give me less than 0 or not a number, then I will say you have given me a wrong number. Please give right number, right? Please give a correct number, basically, not a negative number or a integer string or less than 0. Otherwise I will give you the output. So if the number is less than 1, I will return you the number back. Otherwise I will subtract previous two, add basically previous two numbers like this, so this question mark colon is called as tertiary conditional operator. So what we are doing, if less than 1 comes, I will return back the same number, otherwise I'll add previous two numbers, okay? And it will print me and last thing, to print the output. So if this result is 0, if it is 0, it will print 0, otherwise it will print error occurred. And the last thing, using string templating, I will say above loop or fib function took $, diff, this much amount of time, this much amount of millisecond to process the code, right? So now this is a prompt T. When I save this, it should give me a prompt with the default value 30. Please enter a number. I, let's say, give 15. I said okay, and it tells me 27 is the output,
How
The,
did it calculate 27?
the addition of previous,
30.
you know, so here number, if it's this addition of previous to number, oh, I didn't call the function actually. So I should have called the same function. So let's put 15 again. So if you add 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you will get 92. Right? But it is taking 0 milliseconds to process. And let's take 30 only. Now it is taking 21 milliseconds to process. Right? So permutation is going on. Right? If error comes, it will print us error occurred also. Right? So what I wanted to show you was using prompt. This prompt is coming with the message and a default value. I introduced two variable, one function. If the number is less than 0 or not a number, I will give this error message. So here if I just give minus 90, let's say, it tells me error occurred because I didn't print the here I could have printed the name of the error, right? But here I am saying if it is 0 it will print error occurred, otherwise it will print the result. So if I say 9 minus 80, it says error occurred, and this error occurred and the name of the error is simple error, and still it took this much amount of millisecond to process because finally will always work, right? So what I wanted to show you was prompt will come to variable, and this is how I'm adding to previous number again and again and again and again till the time I don't reach 1. And in case error comes, it will print this. In case of correct result, it will print value, otherwise it will print the error occurred message. And this last console log will work to tell me how much time starting and end, this much time took to process this function.
The
Right?
permutation, if we want to stop that permutation, how can we do that? It has to be equal to 1, then only it will stop.
Yes.
So if you type in the prompt 1,
If I type 1, it just says result is 1. Right? It gives me 0 plus 1. The output is still 1, and it gives me this result as 1 because it ran fine. If I would have given 0, then it would have told me, here I said error will come if it is less than 0. If I would have said less than 1, then this error message would have come. This, I didn't print the message, I print the name, and here comes the error occurred if result is 0. Right?
okay.
Then I was telling you that finally will always work. So if you have this function in try block, you're simply returning a value called 12. In catch block you have something, right? You are printing the name. But in finally block you are saying, let's say console log, let's say by, and here you call this function. It will return you 12, but finally will always work, right? This function returned you 12. If you print output, it will give you 12, but finally will always work, right? So finally will always work.
Okay.
Okay. Now last thing, let's say you want to create your own error, validation error, by extending the parent error class. So you can print the message using the constructor, whatever message you will get when you will call this. So using parent class, super is used to call the parent class constructor. Constructor is used to define the non-static variables as part of the, and you can give the name of the error. The name of the error in this case is validation error. You can give any name you want, right? So this is how you created your own error class. You created your own error, right? So here you called one function called test or xyz. You can throw validation error, and you can give my error, this message. This message will be printed for you with this name. So when I call test and I put this into try catch, right? So via console log, if I print the name and the message, the name will be here the validation cannot be invoked without new, right? So here comes the validation error, this name, and message is my error.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is possible to create your own error classes also.
Okay.
Right? So error handling, this is what error handling is as part of the JavaScript.